Hey guys, welcome back to the channel of Millie Makamaru. As Miss COVID is almost beaten and hopefully cleared off for the rest of time, people are going to be obviously starting to look at going on holidays and things. And two places where me and Millie want to go is Japan and New York. I've already been to Japan once, and that was back in 2019, just before old COVID started. I've got a couple of controversial tips that I've noticed that some other YouTubers have told others to stay away from. However, these tips kind of help me in maximising the potential of my first holiday in Japan. As a disclaimer, these tips may not work for you, however they are kind of interesting things to think about before you start planning things like your flights or the things that you do in Japan. So tip number one, I've watched many vloggers in Japan and a lot of people say if you're going on holiday to avoid Golden Week. So Golden Week is a week in Japan where many Japanese holidays, national holidays, all fall within a period of about 7 days. And this week, many people in Japan seem to go out from the city into like the countryside to go and get basically a break away from the city, go and see family and things like that. So during this week, Tokyo can be pretty empty and pretty dead, and it could make traveling around Tokyo actually very easy. However, you do kind of lose the whole hustle and bustle and the busyness of, say, Tokyo that many people will see on documentaries and in other people's videos. Next year, this falls on the 29th of April, so this goes on for 7 days. My tip here would be to stay in Tokyo during that first 7 days, you know, have a look around the area, you know, if you want to do a lot of shopping or sightseeing, go to Odaiba, Shinjuku, Shibuya, Ginza, all those kind of places, I think this would be the perfect time to go. Obviously, at the end of the 7-day holiday, people are going to start coming back to Tokyo, so you want to avoid getting trains and, you know, booking transport for those couple of days. When the holiday's finished, if you book, say, Shinkansen to, say, Kyoto or, you know, Hiroshima, wherever you want to go, typically seats are fully available and you can just literally jump onto any Shinkansen you want and you can go direct to these places as everyone's come off their holidays and are now back in the big city. If you can avoid these major days of national travel, then obviously you can have a much more free time around, say, well, both Tokyo in the first week and then Kyoto and Nara, all these other places. When I went to Kyoto, the shrines were completely dead. We went up to Mount Inari, went to see monkeys, all this kind of stuff. The only people actually there were pretty much tourists because all the nationals who went there on holiday from Tokyo were all back in Tokyo. So it actually gives a really open, friendly and fresh feeling to all these major parks and, you know, national treasures that you want to go and see unobscured by way too many people. Tip number two would be flights. From the UK, you can get some standard flights direct to Tokyo for about £700 to £800. My first tip in buying flights would be to always try and go for the Haneda airport. Haneda is literally only about a 20 to 30 minute train journey from places like Shinjuku and Shibuya, whereas the Narita airport is about an hour to an hour and a half train journey. There are out there many options for one-stop flights. These can be about £300, £400 cheaper, so it's a really enticing deal. However, a lot of these deals I've noticed only have a 1 hour or 1.5 hour connection time. The first time I went to Japan, we had a 1 hour connection time in Frankfurt Airport. I don't know if you've ever been to Frankfurt Airport, but it is massive and it is so hard to find where you're going. The only way I managed to get my flight was thanks to an Air Nippon flight attendant literally waiting at the flight departure of our connecting flight. An hour layover simply wasn't enough. The flight out from Heathrow to Frankfurt was quarter of an hour late. It literally takes you 45 minutes to go from, say, one terminal to another in Frankfurt. So if you're gonna go for a connecting flight, I would strongly recommend going for at least 2 hours, especially from Frankfurt Airport, as 1 hour just simply isn't enough and it isn't worth the stress. My next tip is, if you can, use trains as your main form of travelling. The one thing, however, I will disagree with on other YouTubers is about the JR Pass. The JR Pass is fantastic if you're going for long distance travel. So if you're going from, say, Tokyo in one day to Kyoto to Hiroshima to back to Nara to Nagasaki to all those other places, you know, even if you're going up to, say, Hokkaido, it's incredible. It saves you so much money. However, if you're based in Tokyo for, say, a week, it is not worth buying your JR Pass for that 1 week. It will be cheaper to buy individual tickets on the subways. So my tip personally would be, if you're going for a 2-week holiday and say your second week is going to be a lot more of travel around the whole of Japan, not just Tokyo, then for the first week I wouldn't bother with a JR Pass. I would literally just get the tickets from you know, A to B. If you want to go to Odaiba from Tokyo, if you want to go to Disneyland or Disney Sea, you want to go to the Ghibli Museum, anything like that, but buy at the station with just normal tickets. However, if you're going to, you know, far out places, definitely get a JR Pass because they seem to go pretty much all over the country. So the JR Pass for for 1 week, I believe, was about £180 to £200. I did look at some of the prices for the Shinkansen if you didn't use a JR Pass. It's about £160 single or return, I can't remember. So you can imagine by the time you've used it about 2 or 3 times to go for a long distance journey, you're actually going to make your money back. However, if you're going around Tokyo and you're using, say, 70 pence to get 2 stations down the line, it's not worth it. To get a pass, it's quite simple. You can order one off the JR Pass website directly, or there are a couple of other websites where you can order these, such as STA Travel. Just make sure you check through the eligibility list, because I'm pretty sure that you can only order these before you've actually got into the country, so you need to order these prior to leaving for Japan. The next point is something I haven't actually seen any other YouTubers mention. So last year, just before Corona hit, I was planning on going to Japan with a bunch of friends, and my favourite band, a Japanese band who are from Osaka called Crossfaith, miraculously decided to put on a gig in Osaka on the one day I was going to be there. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, that is amazing, I'm just going to go and grab some tickets right now. Problem was, with Japanese concerts, you can't just go and buy tickets off the internet, or not in all cases anyway. So luckily, the last time I was in Japan, I became friends with this lad who showed me around places in Shinjuku through the service of Magical Trip, which is essentially a tour guide service. He took me to a various array of izakayas and sake bars, and I kept in contact with him on Instagram, and I asked him, how the hell can I order a ticket, because I can't order these tickets online. And he mentioned that a lot of tickets in Japan you have to actually order through convenience stores. So you basically go to these machines that look like ATMs in various convenience stores, so such as 7-Eleven, Lawson's, any of the big chain, you know, convenience stores in Japan. And these ATM machines allow you to book tickets for music events and other events that require tickets. I actually have to ask him prior to going if there was any chance of him actually ordering me a ticket, and then I was going to go and pick him up from him the next time I was in Tokyo. So if you're heavily into music, or you really want to get tickets for, say, a sports event or anything like that, just double check that you can actually get these tickets online before you go, and if not, chances are you need to actually go and get these tickets physically. It was a massive pain in the arse, and if Corona didn't hit, it would have been fully worth it, but it's just another thing to keep in mind. And my last tip would be, don't be afraid of the language or cultural barrier between British people and the Japanese. Most people in the big cities such as Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, most of the people there know some English, especially young people coming out of universities and secondary schools and things like that. Many people in Japan have been taught at least basic level English, and a lot of these people too want to practice their English on you. So there's been many times where I was in different stores and things like that where people were literally coming up to me, talking to me in English with confidence, and, you know, getting a response from me because obviously they were speaking English so well that you know, it was easy to understand them. Isn't to say that not having a basic understanding of Japanese isn't a good thing. I personally did a lot of research and a lot of learning and a lot of studying of basic Japanese phrases to use when I was over there, because I wanted to test myself and push myself and try and, you know, get properly immersed in the culture. And you know, it's really useful being able to ask for things, asking things off the menu, ordering things, and talking to people in shops. However, my point is, don't hesitate in going to Japan because you think it's going to be a massive cultural barrier where you're not going to be able to understand anything, and that the whole of Japan is like this mysterious, like modern world that you're not going to get along in. I would, however, say some kanji for some very obvious things that you would think of in the UK may not be as obvious in Japan. For example, entry and exit kanji symbols, they are very useful to know, in addition to things like male and female for, say, toilets. So, you know, simple things like that I think are very useful to know. So that is my 5 tips for going to Japan that you may not have heard of before, and I hope at least one of them you haven't. Hopefully at the start of next year, me and Millie are finally going to be able to go to Japan. As I mentioned before, these tips are based on my experiences of going to Japan for the first time, so they might not be applicable to you. However, they are things that very much either irritated me a little bit the first time I went, or they're tips that I would definitely give to other people, hence why I'm making this video. So thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, or at least leave a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.